Introducing music production using historical context, the particular case of the record industry in Colombia. Sorry, wait a moment. Well, this is Daniel Marín Jaramillo, Master of Arts in Record Production. He is actually a full-time professor at Faculty of Arts and Humanities at the ITM. And I am Carlos Caballero, PhD candidate in arts, full-time professor at Faculty of Arts and Humanities of the Metropolitan Technological Institute here in Medellin. Well, preliminary. The recording industry in Colombia has its beginnings in the decade of the 30s, specifically in the city of Cartagena, Colombia in 1934. In the image, you can see South America, Central America, and Colombia, and the Caribbean coast, Cartagena. It was there where an amateur radio operator decided to set up the first acetate cutter in our country and start recording any kind of music, especially tropical. His name was Antonio Fuentes, Toño Fuentes, and he was the pioneer of the record industry in our country. This is all images of Antonio Fuentes here in the studios here in Medellin in the 60s. At the end of the 40s, the city of Medellin was the industrial epicenter in Colombia. And it was in this city where the true industrialization began, though until 1946, all the records had been produced and duplicated in countries such as Argentina, Chile, United States, Mexico, and Colombia. This is an image of where is located Medellin in the Andean mountains. This is our city where we are right now. In the 50s, in the 1950s, most of Colombia's record companies were based here in Medellin, except for two in the capital, Bogota, and other in the port of Barranquilla on the Caribbean coast. Sonolux, Seida, Silver, Ondina, and Discos Fuentes were the most important and even had great influence in the rest of Latin American countries between the decades of the 60s and 70s, especially of tropical genres, such as cumbia, porro, salsa. Our works begins with the need to plan the thematic content of the course in audio and recording history, which was also highly influenced by the ITM Arts and Humanities Research Group in its line of research of cultural heritage. As a result of its research projects, the university received in 2015 a donation from the record label Discos Fuentes, consisting of a collection of 16,000 vinyls, 2,000 analog master tapes and audio equipment from the 60s, 90s, such as Ampex recorders and preamps, RCA microphones, tape recorders of 2 and 4 channels like Otari that you can see in the image, digital tape record of 24 channels, among others, like the Sony Dash 3324. We have 2 of them. With which it has been possible to carry out some research activities. In addition to an exhibition in the celebration of the 85 years of the first record label in Colombia, Discos Fuentes, in October 2019. That was the image of the expo. That was made in the hall of the theater in the downtown here in Medellin. You can see the machines, the preamps of Ampex, the Otari of 2 tracks, duplicate cassette, a machine, a Dash Sony, a synthesizer DX7 Yamaha, a couple of microphones, RCA, and 2 instruments legendary from the 70s and 80s. With all this material, in addition to the work we had been doing in the history course, we began to design a recording course that will allow us to incorporate the sound and aesthetic of these traditional techniques with contemporary forms of capture and recording. This way, students not only know the history of recording in our country and the world, but also a way to apply it to their own productions. Well, the introduction. In a previous work that we carry out to identify the state of the art related to the recording history curricula in different academic programs in American continent, we found that there are really few who actually have a specific course on the history of recording in their academic programs. Most are linked to Western music history courses, some of music appreciation and some of music history in their own countries. In this search, which we carry out based largely on the institution accredited in the AES Education Directory, especially those of level type 3 and 4, that is engineering and bachelor programs degree, we found out of the 81 institutions seen, only 11 had a course related completely to the history of audio and recording. And well, with this situation, we decided to design a course that could precisely relate the musical production from a historical concept. Therefore, the question were, can we design a music production course that integrates the historical context? Second, what period of history should it cover? And third, what methodologies should we implement to engage the students in the topic? Well, the methodology that we apply in this work and in this course was the next. For the temporary design of the course, we decided to cover the period from the end of the World War II to the present or systematization of the recording processes. And the main object of analysis will be the album as a sound aesthetic concept. The constructivist approach that we implemented in the course allowed us to give a large part of the analysis work to the students in such a way that they themselves discovered it based on their tastes and aesthetic line to work on.
So, studying the legacy of music albums by great producers, musicians, bands, and production teams provide music, production, and audio engineering students with judgment and creation tools to freely explore different aesthetics, genres, and periods. So, who's better than Sam Phillips to learn about tape delay, or who can teach us more about Spring River tanks than King Tubby? Or who could place the microphones better than Antonio Fuentes in his music production of him? Is the album the main item that is teaching us how to produce music? Based on the above, the course was designed to answer three additional questions. First, can we engage students in a music production course using history and their own taste in music? Second, what methodological strategies should be applied so that they learn about the development of the music industry in the region and country? Third, how can the course help students identify the sound aesthetics of each period in history and link them to audio technology and their applications? To answer these questions, we developed 4 different types of activities. These activities are timeline, sociocultural context of local record industry, selected discography, and a chameleon session. We are going to describe each one of them. First, the timeline. The timeline is the first theoretical practical activity of the course. Students created a timeline with 20 songs they liked and had their personal music collections, organized chronologically from the oldest to the newest. This promoted the good practice of acknowledging the credits and the work teams behind the music productions. Afterward, students listen and take notes on significant sound and aesthetic changes. We're going to quote Jason Corey here. Not only can music recordings be recognized by their musical melodies, harmonies, and structure, They can also be recognized by timbres of those instruments created in the recording process. This activity helped them to do two main things. A, recognize timbre differences in their own musical taste, and B, link genres and aesthetics to particular periods in the history of music production. So the second one is called the socio-cultural context of the local record industry. We consider that students should learn about the development and evolution of the recording industry around them, in this case, Colombia. Therefore, the second activity of the course was divided in two stages. First, the students went over a module on the social, cultural, and historical evolution of the recording industry in Colombia, more specifically in Medellin, which has been the center of the national industry. Second, they practiced recording with analog equipment. These two stages strengthened its link with the cultural and sound memory of the country, as well as the evolution of audio in terms of the incorporation of new technology equipment and how its usage and evolution have changed music production methods and our current perception of audio. This is also reinforced by the practical work carried out in the second stage of this activity. The third activity is called selected discography. At this point, it could be said that students are already aware of the differences in timbre and the relationship to technology. How does the spring reverb sound? How does tape delay sound? What is a very new compressor? How does a Fairchild sound? And in this third activity, the professor selected and shared a discography of approximately 30 albums, maybe more, and the participants were advised to privately buy or purchase legal copy of at least one of the suggested albums. It's a tough thing to do here in Medellin and maybe in the whole Latin America, yeah. But we try to acknowledge them to buy music, to make it like in a legal way. So we talk about pages like HD tracks or something like that to have it like in a proper quality, but also in a legal way. So provided with the theory and the detailed playlist, each student critically listened to the albums and as feedback, wrote an essay about her or his perception of her and what each decade sounded like. As a consequence, participants tried to identify differences not only in the sound or tone of the productions, but also regarding the role of producers and how it has changed as a result of emerging or evolving technologies and the possibilities that their technical function offer.
Yeah, here we quote Functional Typologies of Burgess, 2013, in the Art of Record Production, in the 6 different categories, typologies: artist, author, facilitative, collaborative, narrative, and consultative.
So we try to make the students notice like production styles, differences in timbre or compression, or different types of delays or reverberations, and then try to link that kind of aesthetic decisions with the producer and their qualities. Yeah. So the fourth activity is called Chameleon Session. In the fourth activity, groups of 3 students were provided with a list of music producers so that they selected their favorite. Again, almost all of the work is done by their own taste. It's a way to trying to engage them. Then they made a presentation about their producer, covering among other aspects their career, style of their sound aesthetics, production characteristics, and the relationship with their time and technology of their period. To complete this activity and the course, the students submitted a multi-track session or a new production based on a monotrack or of a cappella vocal. Each production should be processed and finalized in the style of the producer of their choice.
About this point, we consider that just as students of traditional Western or European music should write a piece of music in the Baroque style or in the form of sonata to practice style identification and mastery, our students in record production should practice understanding different sound aesthetics based on a learning to be and learning to do. Can you think the image, a sheet about Barroco and a pianist playing a sonata? Well, for us, a student on record production uh, is possible to make I don't know, maybe a record based on the sound of their dark side of the moon, for example.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is that they recognize sound aesthetics depending on the decade, depending on the technology made or used in that particular era, and try to condense that in in one song. Let's say.
Yeah. Well, results adopting a constructivist approach that combine theory, practice, and independent student work. This study showed that thanks to the proposed activities, students could have other conceptions of and approaches to record production in a historical, international, and national context. Their engagement and participation, even their candid amazement and these discoveries are clear proof that the method proposed here is adequate. Indeed, it enables students to acquire basic skills to produce music in different ways depending on period and style, in addition to the characteristic of each one of them.
So to complete the verification of results, a survey was conducted and the following are the answers of 43 students to the qualitative questions that give us quantitative results of the proposal. First, after the course, could you identify the period in history in which a record was produced based on its sonority? We know this is not 100% accurate. We have records in the 2000 that try to emulate the sound of the 50s or 70s or 80s, but we are trying to get the big picture. So after the course, could you identify the period in history in which a record was produced based on its sonority? Always 15, almost always 80, rarely 5.
Do you think can you use some of the tools and processes covered in class in your personal music production work? Always 72%, almost always 28%.
Do you think doing practical work in a course about audio history is useful? Yes, 97.6%, no, 2.4%.
Before the course, how much did you know about the history of music recording in Colombia? Nothing, 28%, very little, 43%, something, 27%, a lot, music of Colombian, I don't know, 2%.
How appropriate was the approach of the course? Moderately appropriate, 4.8, appropriate, 33.3%, and very appropriate says 61.9%.
And finally, how satisfied are you with the course? Very dissatisfied, minimum 2%, moderately dissatisfied, another 2%, satisfied 29%, and very satisfied 67%. Go.
So based on these answers, we could establish that the methodology we adopted had the effect we expected, at least in terms of students' perception of the course and its methodology. There were also 3 questions about theory, which shed light on students' tastes and general knowledge they acquired during the course. First, what new music genres and albums did you learn about during this course? Second, what new producers did you learn about in this course? Third, Were the contents and activities in this course useful for you to learn about or improve your knowledge of other fields related to audio? The results of this part were very diverse and enable us to focus the course more on some topics and improve or even change others. Conclusions. So the course described here, which integrates a historical approach and context, is a part of the BA program in Record Arts and Music Production at the ITM and one of the students' favorites. The music history courses tends to be like boring stuff. You know, we are not doing an statement. We are just saying that for our students, at least, they tend to be like the more heavy and boring stuff because they always think it's just about
it's theoretical
memorizing and reading stuff. But this methodology,
with this approach, the students more appreciate that kind of stuff, of course.
The methodology presented step by step in this paper can be replicated in any country and culture, regardless of the type of program. Nevertheless, the selection of key producers in other cases should involve the local history and its geographic, political, and cultural position. Since this course adopted a historical approach, there was an interesting appropriation of theory, names, and other information based on individual student taste, which was complemented with hands-on activities.
We should find strategies to have music production students devote more of their time to the preservation of audio tapes and analog equipment, which represent material heritage. This is because most enthusiasts and experts in the field of preservation and maintenance of analog audio equipment are older people who have acquired empirical knowledge thanks to years of working in the industry, in the records, etc. If they pass away, such knowledge could be lost. Therefore, new strategies should be explored to preserve this type of knowledge over time. While creating this course, we could also see that a learning module about heritage and the preservation of audiovisual archive should be designed as a complementary workshop for students in ITM research incubators in this and other related fields. Well, that was our presentation. That is the reference that we sent it in the paper. And this is our emails, Daniel Marín and Carlos Caballero. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.